Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Integrative You Radio. You have Dr. Nicole and you have Clark Kent with us. For those of you that are on YouTube, you know what I mean because Dr. Nick puts on his glasses and it's literally like we went from Superman to Clark Kent.
Superman
uh,
to Clark Kent, Clark Kent to Superman.
you
My
know,
middle name is Clark, so let's
oh, I didn't even really think about that.
let's go after it.
So we're diving into a topic that got me a little heated the other day, maybe most days, as Dr. Nick would describe. But it was actually around parenting. And listen, we'll be transparent. We're not here to tell you how to parent by any means. But the main thing that I want to lead with here is actually a little story about myself. You know, you guys know that I love to tell stories. And then to kind of spin that into giving you some different ways to think about why your kid might be firing back at you, might be a rebel, might be, throwing fits, tantrums, being difficult, whatever you want to call it. And so I was a
Because
bad
they're a
kid.
Scorpio. Because they're a Scorpio. All
I
right,
was,
everybody, that's it.
yeah. Well, don't get me wrong. Okay, so I am Italian, Puerto Rican, and a Scorpio. So, it is quite the trifecta that my parents had to deal with. But I have thought long and hard about, why was I such a rebellious, tough kid? And it's not because I just felt like it. And don't get me wrong, when it comes to the health side of things, found out way, way later in life that I ended up having significant mercury toxicity, parasite infections in my gut. And I'm sure that created a significant issue when it came to the volatility of my moods. But when it came down to more of the environmental, family dynamics, communication, interpersonal aspects of why I acted the way that I did and why I was so rebellious, was not seeing a lot of integrity with what I was being told. And essentially, it's the idea of people walking their talk. I would be told, don't curse. And then my parents would be cursing at each other. I would be told, be respectful to your mother, be respectful to your father, as they would then disrespect each other. So there was a lot of lack of authenticity because they were telling us as kids to act a certain way, be a certain way, but they weren't being that way. And so, it makes you think, well, I guess this is more unconscious as a young individual is you're watching, you're observing because kids are watching and observing everything. And you see those cracks and you're like, well, if they're going to say not to do that, but they do it, then I guess it's not that important. I guess I'll still do it. And it also, again, unconsciously, as a child, you're losing a bit of respect for your elder, your parent. And that's why at times when there's a altercation, they're quote unquote in your mind treating you with disrespect. And it's because there's this unconscious program in the back of they don't really do what they say. I don't have much respect for you. And there's a couple of other factors that we're going to get into in this podcast, but it's something that I think needs to be brought to the attention of adults is it's not about what you say, it's about what you do. And it's also about your energy. You know how many parents have said, well, we never fought in front of our kids. That doesn't matter. Your kids can feel the tension at the dinner table, even though you just fought behind closed doors. The kids are not stupid. And I think that is something that conventional medicine has peddled to us that kids are totally unaware, that they're unaware as infants. They don't know what's going on. They're unaware as toddlers. Like they are so aware. They're more aware than Nick and I together in this moment. They're more aware than most adults because awareness has been ripped out of us. It's just go, 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 put your head down, do, 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 hustle, hustle, hustle. And kids still are using all of their senses. Adults aren't.
Well, I don't know if I 100% agree with that last statement.
You would love
Like,
to do this on
I like to
podcasts. Go
challenge you.
ahead. Go ahead.
Um, I think our people listening to us like to see a healthy disagreement. Um,
Every
and it's
moment of
not
my life.
that I don't think adults necessarily aren't aware, but we've been programmed not to feel.
Mm,
And when you think of a child, especially under the age of 7, it's all they're doing is collecting information to formulate their personality, to
yeah.
formulate their values, what's important to them, their programs, etc. And they haven't learned to quote unquote to not feel this, that even quote unquote an outrage, that's a bad thing to do. Like they feel and they express, they don't hold back.
Yeah.
And us giants, aka adults, we've taught ourselves, or we've been taught, or both, to, even if we feel, to not express. So on a cellular level, that's, you said, it's not what you say, it's what you do. But to even compound out of that, it's not even what you do, but how you do it.
Yeah.
Because sometimes, it's like we did a past podcast on like I'm the great student, but it's like, how did you do it? Were you doing it to be a good student? Were you doing it to like better the
Yeah.
quality of
Were
your
you
life,
doing it
better?
out of inspiration versus desperation because you
Exactly.
need
So it's
need
like,
to be a good student?
and you can even go into looking at, you know, disciplining a child. It's more important of how you're disciplining the child. Are
Yeah.
you doing it in that authoritative, like because I said so? Or
Mm-hmm.
are you doing it to actually connect and make sense so that they're growing their awareness? And even if quote unquote it hurts, it's out of love.
Yeah.
And it's not it hurts because I'm fucking fed up with you and I can't
Yeah.
tolerate you anymore. It's no, like that's not okay. This is why. You may not like it, but that's still okay. Like you can feel this. It's okay to feel this. Uh, We live in a duality. We feel both sides. We're never just gonna exemplify one side of life. And if we try, we're gonna live in a nightmare, both sides, the parent and the child.
But this is exactly what you always say about the polarization. So we're millennials, our parents are, boomers, and that was the era of the authoritative disciplining. You know, it's because I said so, respect your elders, and it was just in some families, if you don't listen, you're going to get, hit with the wooden spoon or the broom or the belt, like, and it was just like, shut your mouth. And I'm the parent. I make the rules here. And that's the way that it goes. And now we're in an era of this, very soft parenting that it's like we don't want to do any level of discipline, and it's essentially the counterbalancing that's going on, but neither one of them are actually going to serve the purpose of creating great humans, because that's not, everything's a half truth, as we always say. Like, this is not about just giving your kid a ton of support and, it's okay that you feel that way. It's okay that you did that. It's okay. It's okay that you're, not achieving where you are achieving. Like, it's they're here to have some level of wisdom from people that have had more life experiences. They do not have the ability to understand and process, and that's all they're trying to do is understand. So when parents or adults think, oh, why are they such a pain in the ass? Why are they challenging me? Because they're asking all these questions. They're asking questions because of curiosity. They're asking questions because they want to understand why they can't do that. They want to understand why they got in trouble. They want to understand. And that's even something that, I'll say certain personalities and certain, maybe, astrological signs need more of, because even at times, we are at fault, but I forget what was going on with you and Quentin, because you and Quentin are so funny when you butt heads, and I laugh when, a 40-year-old man is butting heads with a 3.5-year-old. And oh, he wanted to get out of his stroller, and you were just like, you can't get out of the stroller right this minute, and he was getting very, very upset about it. And I said, Nick, I was like, listen, because Nick, Q and I are 3 days apart in our birthdays, and I was like, listen,
And they're both fucking crazy.
oh yeah, we're very intense, very, very intense. And I was just like, he's gonna lose his shit until he can understand why he can't get out of the stroller and when he can get out of the stroller. I was like, so just explain those two things to him, and I swear he will be fine. And that's exactly what happened. He pretty much explained it. He said, we're gonna get to this point on the road and then you can get out. And he was like, okay. And so he just wanted to understand. He didn't understand. He felt like he was being trapped inside of the stroller because, he was all buckled in, and he just didn't understand why. So I found that to be, it's so interesting because as we're navigating these things, it's making me think about where things went wrong when I was a young kid, is that I was quote unquote pushing back, but really I just didn't understand. Something didn't make sense to me. I'm very big on everything making sense. And it was just, if you can help me understand, why I can't do this, or why I can't have the sleepover, or why you can't drive me here, I'm going to shut up and leave you alone. But if I think you're just kind of being an asshole to me because you want to, because you're in a bad mood or having a bad day, then now I'm going to make your life a living hell.
And it's nothing's black and white. Sometimes it goes easy pleasy, like it did for Q in the stroller in that moment.
Of
And
course.
sometimes, even if A, they understand, or B, it's their choice, sometimes they don't want to understand.
Hmm.
Um, so a big thing I've been teaching Q lately is there's always a way.
Hmm.
And this is important. I think I'm teaching him this as much as I'm teaching compounding, strengthening. My understanding of this is that there's always a way. So if I'm trying to communicate with him, or if I have this objective goal and it's not working out, well, the definition of insanity is just doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. So let's try it differently. And let's pause for a second and be like, am I communicating with his values? Can I communicate better with his values? Especially young people, they understand symbolism. So it's like he loves dinosaurs. Let's put it in the perspective of a dinosaur. You know, let's connect through that way. Like, what's he?
We use the dinosaurs a lot.
How can I just best connect so he can actually understand?
Hmm.
And whether it's a child, whether it's adult, a lot of times when it's the person, they put up a guard because they feel like they're being attacked, even if it's the goal is from love to try to better, to try to protect, to try to serve. So if we can give the analogy and quote unquote, instead of coming through the front door, go through a side door or a back door, so they're more not going to be as threatened, then we actually can start making a change.
Hmm.
And that's always the goal is, to just create a little change first. We always want initial big results right away. A lot of times in life, that's not how it works. So you just have to start somewhere small and then compound that. And then eventually you get to where you want. Took a little longer than quote unquote. You're like, oh my God, kind of exhausted after that. But it's also very rewarding because when you think about taking the time to it's not what you do, but how you do it, taking the time to really make a difference, that actually
Yep.
can change how a person's genes are expressing because you're actually showing, and it's like I joke I've been calling Q, um, we call Nicole's dad Big Dog. And, or, lately I've been calling Big Dog or Pete Rivera because I see expressions of Nicole's dad, and he hasn't even spent tons of time with Nicole's dad.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of those traits being passed down through the genes are expressing itself. And when we can love that part, well, then we can actually help balance out that gene expression, which is kind of crazy. And we could get into the science of it, but I don't think that's the purpose of this podcast today.
It's actually funny. I'm gonna go there right now because I was just thinking about this in this moment. So talking about that, we do want to do a separate podcast on it because it's so layered. But now that you said it, a lot of people they talk about family history from a perspective of health, and they think it's inevitable that they're going to get certain diseases or have different expressions. But when it comes to this idea of things that are passed down, sometimes it's not necessarily just genetic, but there's also this like energetic imprint. And
If you want to
Quentin,
research, it's called a miasm.
yeah,
So
so
look up miasm.
Quentin did not spend barely any time at all with your dad, with the exception of 1 week in South Carolina since he was born. And there was a phase that Quentin was going through that he didn't want anything green. Like if we made him chicken and there was a piece of parsley on it as a garnish, he wouldn't eat it. And that is Nick's dad. He literally his whole life would not eat anything green, and he would go to a restaurant. If something green was on the plate, he'd send it back. Like a garnish, meaning not broccoli, just anything green. And I remember when Quentin showcased this, I was like, "You how is this even possible? Like this is wild." And your dad was just here, and he ate everything I made. He did not bitch or moan about anything green. He ate pesto one day. He ate vegetables. Because I just said, Bud, you're in my house. I'm not making you anything special, and you're going to eat green shit. That's what it comes down to. Quentin has been eating so much more since that.
Mhm.
We broke a cycle. Holy shit.
Well,
Like I'm literally like holy shit right now. Because Quentin was literally we were like, how is this possible that we're the biggest foodies on the planet and our kid won't eat anything? And literally your dad came and he ate all the things, and now Quentin is eating so much more. Like, wow. Hmm.
yeah, we'll talk more about this in our next podcast, but the only way to truly heal others, specifically family, is healing yourself. And in that instance, my dad healed a part of him, and his genes that are being expressed in Q changed, which is pretty wild.
Yeah.
What's also fun is we have the power as energy is bidirectional that we can change, and that goes actually both into the past and to the future. So it changes generations back, but also changes generations
Hmm.
ahead of us.
Well,
But
speaking of that idea, as we get back on topic here, is a lot of times we want to influence our kids. I don't want to say control our kids, and maybe in some aspects we're trying to control their outcomes,
we want to
but
intelligently fuck them up.
but one of the major things that you need to take away from this podcast is that you as a parent, you can only really be in control of yourself. And that's really the whole point here, is that if you can show up differently and you can show up as the best version of yourself, that is going to make the absolute biggest impact on your children. And this has shown in the now 14 years that we have been working with families, because there was a period of time that we would work with the kid and we wouldn't necessarily work with the parents. Now anytime that we bring on a child, we work with the parents as well, and it's because they are a genetic blueprint of both parents. They are also, and they're very heavily influenced by the energy dynamics and personality dynamics and belief dynamics of the family. And so it's important for the parents to know how they're playing a role in their child's outcomes, good or bad. And so the main things that we want you to understand is that kids crave understanding. And so if you can meet them in the middle, as Dr. Nick was saying, with how to communicate with them, whatever they like, if they're into dinos at the time, if they're into baseball at the time, if you can use that as a context to tell a story to help them understand something, if it's something that you don't want them to do, if it's something you do want them to do, and and let it sit and surrender to them getting it or not getting it. It's just like, don't think like, oh, because I'm going to now show up differently and I'm going to make an effort to explain something, it doesn't mean the first time you do it or the last time you do it that they're going to be like, oh, thank you so much, I totally understand that. They might need a few days to process it. They might tell you to screw off, and in 1 year they might be like, wow, that was a really amazing lesson, mom and dad.
But at the
So,
same time, it's most of what kids feel isn't words. Like they don't understand everything
of
we're
course.
saying. What they understand is how we're saying it, how we're expressing ourselves. The cells communicate, every single cell in your body communicates through a vibration. And that's how cells speak together. So, and it's been shown that, you know, you can actually turn on a virus embedded because there's 10 times more viral DNA in every single DNA than human DNA, but they speak through vibrations. Everything speaks through vibrations on that cellular, very small level. And person to person, that's how initially, like, somebody walks in a room and it changes the energy.
Yep.
That's the vibration coming that your cells are actually picking up. So it's more of how you're showing up. And if you're taking the time
Yep.
to actually deliver something through love, through slowing down, through really wanting to make a change, not just like you said, for that initial outcome, but to because you're wanting to serve and help to make that child better while making yourself better, that's going to change the energy that they're going to pick up.
Yep.
And even if they, like they said, even if they don't understand,
Mhm.
that calming sensation, that grounding energy from you is what's actually going to probably make the most amount of change.
100%. And I think that going along with that, it's the idea of treating a child as an equal, which I know that I didn't grow up with that idea, but being able to say, not treat them as they're lesser than and that you're the authority. If you can go in and with the energy of, I'm going to talk to you with compassion, I'm going to talk to you as an equal, that's a very, very different energy that's going to be absorbed and felt by your child, opposed to you talking down to them that you're bigger, better, and smarter.
Well, and let's be honest, one of the best things about having children is that it actually gives you an opportunity to heal yourself
Yeah.
because you get to respond how you wanted to be
Hmm.
responded to. And when you can actually deliver that way, well, then you're giving yourself, they're half your DNA.
Hmm.
You're giving yourself what you really wanted to receive when you were a child. And when you can have that and experience that, not only just from giving, because we can't give what we don't have. So
Yeah.
you have to initially change who you are to receive that, to be able to give that. And then you give that, and then you gave that to them, which actually you're giving back to you. It's kind of a mind fuck. Um, but through that process, there's healing, and
But it's
that's
but it's not even as a
beautiful.
kid, it's an adult too. A conversation that I had with a client the other day, I go, imagine if someone spoke to you that way. Imagine your boss was like, "We'll see," or "because I said so. Do this because I said so." Can you
I'm sure
imagine?
there's bosses out there
I know,
that
but the point is that you're turning around going, fuck you. Like you're not like, oh, okay, it's because you said so. Thank you so much. Have a lovely day. And you're even if you did say
I'm
that,
gonna
you're
give you my best.
yeah,
I'm really gonna show up.
you have like I think that if you take away one thing from this entire podcast, it's that when how you show up, and then if your kid again rebels, disrespect you, or is unreceptive, think about it. How would you feel if someone spoke to you that way? And this is mainly what I was leading with the awareness aspect, is that we need to be aware of how we are speaking, because this happens also in marital dynamics. You think about like husbands and wives will bring so much emotion to the table when they're trying to have a conversation, and you would never do that with your boss. You would rein it in. You would go in and you would practice how you're going to show up diplomatically, non emotional. But for some reason, we put all the emotions on the table when we're trying to have a constructive conversation with our family, if it's our kids or our partners. So, overall, the last thing that I want to leave you with is practice what you preach, because you will gain so much more respect from your kids when they actually see you showing up how you want them to show up, and admit when you're wrong. That level of accountability is huge, especially if you have a kid right now that's hiding stuff, even if they're super little. They broke a toy and they're hiding it, or, they're lying about things, big or small. It's if you can't admit when you're wrong, if that's in your relationship with your partner, if that's with your kids, that's going to play a huge role in why they're acting that way.
Yeah, if you can't be vulnerable, they're not gonna know how to be vulnerable. It's we have to be the image of the best part of them, you know, and that's
Yeah.
our opportunity.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's the same thing. I always laugh when see parents like, get off the phone. You don't need the tablet. And then they're on their phone at the dinner table, like, oh, I got a couple emails, just a few things. And it's like they think, oh, well, it's important because it's for work. So I should be on the phone. Or grandma's in the hospital. So I need to have my phone and I need to be attached to my phone. It doesn't matter. Your kid doesn't understand that maybe you have an important contract that's going through at work. Like if you're on the phone at dinner, then your kid's like, why can't I be on the phone at dinner? It's just we have to be very aware of how we're showing up. Why are you laughing?
And because the movie that I don't really like, but you do, Elf, when the
Oh,
dad comes home and he's like, "I'm going to have dinner in my office or my room or whatever,"
oh
and then the
yeah.
kid's like, "Mom, I've got a lot of important business things to do. I'm going to go to
And
my
she's like, no,
room and
you
play."
can't.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, guys, we hope this was valuable to you. Again, this is not about, saying, hey, parent the way we do. We were just primarily wanting to bring some things to the table that we've seen different families struggle with, and they're not always understanding why this is a theme that keeps showcasing in their household or showcasing with their kids. And through different questions and different probing, we've able to come up with some of the reasons why these dynamics are happening in the house. And let's be honest, these types of dynamics create a lot of stress in family dynamics. It creates a lot of detracted energy. It creates a lot of frustration. And so the goal is if you can take one thing away from here and shift some of the things that are happening inside the household, or shift how you're showing up with your kids, or shifting how you're communicating with your kids, then you can get back so much of your time and energy and actually enjoy each other, opposed to feeling overly frustrated and tense. Nick's got nothing, so we'll see you on the next podcast.